All right, we're back again. Today I have a special guest here from Alberta. His name is Jake Hiebert. Thanks for coming back
For
again.
sure, yeah.
It's been a while since we've had you in Ontario.
Yeah,
so.
it has been a few months. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
So you're heading out tomorrow again, and you were just here for about a week, and basically just a business trip, right?
Just a business trip. Yeah, I was here, what was that, 4 months ago? 5 months ago?
Right, yeah.
And so, because I grew up here, right? Or I say I grew up here, not all the way. But I spent a large part of my younger years here in Ontario. My wife was born and raised here. And so I find that when I went into the financial services industry, a lot of my connections and family and stuff that I still had here, they were, when they found out what I was doing, they really wanted some of that service, especially when they saw some of the things that we're going to talk about today. And I always have a bit of a travel itch gnawing at me anyway. And so being licensed for financial services in multiple provinces now allows me to scratch the travel bug.
Nice.
And at the same time provide a good service for clients. So
well, let's get right into it.
Yeah.
What is it that you do? What
is it that I do? Wow, that's a we can spend the next hour answering that question. Basically, so in practice, what I do is I implement the financial strategies for families, and I teach them how to become financially independent. Right. So that's the big thing. I think that's in terms of financial literacy. There's a lot missing in terms of financial literacy among the average person today. But the biggest thing I find is that there's a large part of the financial literacy that's missing, and that has to do with financial independence. People don't think about financial independence nowadays. I find, at least, and maybe you could talk about that more than I could, I think, but people nowadays, we seem to be, in Canada especially, and it's probably the same US, maybe even other countries, but we seem to be stuck on the wheel of, I need a job so that I can provide rent and food and mortgage payments for the next month.
it's just kind of a rat race that never ends, right?
That's right, yeah. And I think that the financial literacy part of it that I bring, that I try and provide for people, is let's get you thinking differently, right? And I learned that there's a book I read, and I've forgotten the name of it. I should have remembered it, but he had a process in there called the T-bar. What you think, what you become, what you act are the results that you get, right? And so one of the things I always tell my clients and the people that I work with and business owners is, let's get you thinking about financial independence. And the biggest question then is, what does financial independence look like, right? What does it mean? And so that's a big part of the conversation.
I was going to say, what do you describe financial independence?
Financial independence is when your recurring income is higher than your recurring expenses, right? That's, in a nutshell, that's what it is. That I think you can make it really fancy, but if you have built something that provides an income, so you don't have to go to work, and the expenses that you have every day are covered, and there's more left for that.
So would a real estate, like a rental property, be a good example where you...
If you have enough of it and it's paid down far enough, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's recurring income. So then there's also a difference between passive income and recurring income. You can have recurring income that's not passive, but you can have passive income that's truly passive, right? There's very little of that. And we'll talk about that in the compensation as a financial services representative. Mm-hmm. And so as soon as I saw the business model, and the company I'm with, just so people know, I'm a representative with Primerica Financial Services, or PFSL Investments, right? And so one of the things that I learned almost immediately when it comes to financial independence is that passive income is the key, right? Not just recurring income, but recurring passive income. That's the key. And one of the greatest strategies I saw was mutual fund investment, right? Not just for myself, but for my clients, right? And so that was a very big, for me, one of the absolute biggest thing that was attractive to me on the business side of it was the passive recurring income, right? And that didn't have to do with other people in terms of agents. It just had a lot more to do with, if I invest your money properly, and a bunch of clients' money properly, and it grows properly, and I continue to keep that relationship with people.
It's continuous, and you just...
That's correct. Every time you get more money, I get a raise. Every time you make more money, I get a raise. To me, that was very attractive. That's a truly win-win situation, right? And yes, I'm going to meet with you regularly to make sure you're still on track and the things that you want to do. Excuse me. But every time I do that, you're going to see your money grow. The more your money grows, the more money I make, right?
So it's in your best
yeah.
interest to help you grow my money. So.
That's correct. Yeah. So that's kind of the nutshell of it. So if I can say what I do, I try and provide financial literacy that will create financial independence. That's it. And we'll talk about this a little bit more, I think. But whether that's through real estate, so my background is I went to public school for grade 10 and grade 4 and 5. Then I went to private school the first half of grade 6 twice and failed twice. And then went back to public school for half of grade 7. And then I finished my GED diploma at night school between the age of 18 and 25. Right? So that's the extent of my education. And then everything else is self-taught. And then
So it's not like you went to school for years, university, college,
No.
to get trained as a financial advisor?
No, but I had a lot of the school of hard knocks, right? And so then I ended up in construction, and I wanted to be, and the boss I had at the time, man, big shout out to him. He was one of the best people I've ever met in terms of mentoring. And he asked me very early on, do you want to be a carpenter, or do you want to be a carpenter as a business person? I can train you both ways, but you have to tell me which one you want, right? And to me, that was kind of it was a huge turning. It was a very big flip of switch in my brain, so to speak.
But there was other options besides being a physical.
That's correct. Yeah,
carpenter.
That's exactly right. And that I had the means to do it. And I said, can I do it? And he said, yeah, absolutely you can. You need a lot of training and education, right? And so then I finished my apprenticeship, became a Red Seal carpenter, started a business here in Ontario, worked it for about 2 or 3 months, and then we decided to move to Alberta. Moved out there in 2007. Started home building, had that for about 17 years. And then through those 17 years, I built houses, did renovations, did some development, did some commercial projects and commercial management, did a whole slew of different things. Started to buy rental properties, my own, built portfolios, did a whole bunch of different things. And so now, with all of that experience, and then I became licensed in the professional financial world. And so with all of that experience now, if a business owner comes to me, I can say, well, do you want your money? Are you a real estate investor, or are you a mutual fund investor? Are you a passive? Because I actually understand all those things, right?
And I think that's the difference. I think a lot of financial advisors are not involved in real estate, so they strictly focus on certain class or certain portfolio, right?
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that I've had a few business people as clients that say to me, the reason we're investing with you specifically, one of the primary reasons is because of the diverse experience you have. So you actually know what our expectations are, right? To me, that's very powerful. And so the testimony of your life comes out in the things that you do, and then you can help others do the same thing, right? So that's kind of the background. That's how I got into it, and I got very sick in 2015, 16. I got very sick. Ended up having 4 surgeries. Got diagnosed with asthma. Couldn't work on the job site as much anymore, and so I was actually looking for a different career at the time. And I was introduced to Primerica and the financial services industry while I was fairly sick. And I was going to Bow Valley College in Calgary to become an immigration practitioner at the time. And so I had a choice: become an immigration practitioner or chase the dream of the financial world.
One would still have somewhat limitations again on how much you can work, how much you can earn, right?
That's right.
This job probably has no.
No, there's no limitations to it whatsoever. There's no ceiling. You can do with it whatever you want, and that's actually something. And so for me, when I saw there was 2 things that drove me to it. One was the guy said you can get 9-10% in equity markets rate of return per year in a longer period, right? And I said that's not true, because I had some money saved, right, and we had it in a GIC in a bank. And I had
What did that get you at the time?
1%.
1%.
Yeah. We had 1% in a GSC. Hey, I was pretty happy we were investing at 10%.
And I think that's the difference too. Like, I think a lot of people look at investing and they think the only option is real estate, which there's always more risk to that. And I don't think they realize that there's alternative options out there.
Yeah, I agree with that, right? And so when this guy introduced an equity mutual fund portfolio to me, I don't think I'll name the company that we invest with, just for in case there's some legal ramifications, but I'll just say equity mutual funds, if that's okay. And which basically just means ownership, meaning that the company that manages the money puts the money as ownership into other companies. They buy company shares with it, like Amazon and Shell and whatever, right?
So kind of like an S&P 500 or?
Yeah, similar to that, as long as it's equity, right? But anyway, so this guy says, no, you can get 9, 10, 12, 13% some years, even some years more. And I just went, no way, that's true. I kind of wrote him off. I said, no, that's not true. But the guy that introduced the Primerica representative to me was somebody that had worked for me for a lot of years, and I really trusted him. And he said, no, Jake, you need to talk to this guy. The way that your mind thinks, the way you think about business, you need to talk to this guy. And so I did. I called him. And so he told me that 9, 10%. I went. And the other thing he said was, how much money do you think when you need to retire? How much money do you think you'll need? And I went, oh, I don't know. He said, I can actually figure that out for you. And then when he gave me the number, he said, you need at least 1.6 million to retire if you want to retire at the age of 65 with an income that's about today's value would be $3,500, right? And I went, that's a lot of money. And it really was a lot of money to me at the time. And it is for most people, right? And so there was those three things. He said, I can tell you how much you need, and I can show you how to get there. He said, I can get you 9, 10% a year. And then I said, can I do this as a business? And then he said, if you decide to do it as a business, you can, you actually generate true passive income, right? So those were the three things that really attracted me to the Primerica business model. At that time, I didn't even know there was other companies out there that were offering the type of service that Primerica was offering. I had never been introduced to anything like that before. So to me, that was very, very impactful, right? And so then I went and I called a bunch of people and called my bank and went and reinvested my GIC. It had cost me $150, even though it had only grown by $100. So,
what did your bank say when they heard you were taking your money out?
Oh, they understood, because I said the last time I renewed it, you charged me $50 on top of the interest that I had gotten. So picture this. Just we'll get a little bit technical here, right? So I invested $10,000 into a GIC. At a 1% rate of return gets me $100, right? So that is now considered income. So you have to pay tax on that in say a 25% tax bracket. You have to pay $25 to the government of that $100 you've earned. So now you're down to $75. And then in order for me to renew, I had to pay them a $150 renewal fee.
And that was each year?
That was each year, right? And so I was like, okay, so it's costing me $75 a year to have my money invested with you. And he's like, well, no, you made $100. I said, no, I have to pay you to renew it. You don't tell me I make money.
And you don't get a tax deduction on that renewal fee.
No,
right?
you don't, because it's personal. It was personal money. They don't, right? So if it was in the business, it would have been different. But anyway, so that was the technical. And so when I pulled the money out, I said, look, this is what happened. I am not leaving my money here if I can put it over here. They're like, well, equity funds are very risky. And I went, define risk. And they couldn't, right? They really couldn't define what risk is. I can define it easily. If I give my kids $100 and I say, when you're done at the mall today, I want the change back. Whatever I get back, that's my risk. What's the chance I get it, right? That's risk. And I'd say that kind of jokingly with my kids. But equity mutual funds hold the underlying assets remain, right? Yes, they go up and down in value, but the underlying assets remain. I said, no, that's not risky. This is risky. What you're offering me is very risky, right? But anyway, so then I called the guy back from Primerica. He was a representative out of Lethbridge at the time. And I'm like, yeah, I think we need to talk. And so, and in the meantime, I had talked to my friends and family and coworkers, other business owners, and had talked to them like, have you guys heard of this? Can you get 9%? And they're like, no, I've never heard of it. Have you heard of it? No, I never heard of it. Have you heard? No, never heard of it. And so I realized the need for it, right? Have you ever heard of a FIN number? It was like, no, never heard of it. Do you know what it is? Like, how much money do you need? No, I never thought about it. How much money will you need when you retire? Oh, I've never thought about it. So I ended up as a Primerica representative almost by accident, right? Because I loved that concept and nobody knew about it. I'm like, and I've always been kind of a visionary. So I saw it as I went, there's a business opportunity here and I need to switch gears here anyway. I was sick. I couldn't be on site anymore in construction. I got very sick. If I was on site, I'd come home at 2 p.m, coughing and hacking and heaving and going to bed, right? it's hard to make a living in construction when you're doing that. So I saw this opportunity and I went, yeah, I'm doing that. I like it. Right.
So you did it for a while to prove that it worked, and then after that you
that's right.
pursued it as a business to help other.
That's right. Yeah. And so we moved that $10,000 over, and in the first year it grew a little bit. It wasn't a great equity year. That was 2017. I think equity markets, I'll have to double check that number, but they didn't grow a lot. 2017, 2018 was somewhere down, somewhere up. So it still wasn't great, but I got in 2017. Sorry, 2016 I put the money in. 2017 I started the business.
Okay. Yeah. So what's the average now, like looking back the last 10 years on
my rate of return? Yeah. So we're at 9 years now. We're averaging. So the earliest money we put in, we did less at. And as soon as I started building my own portfolios, at the very beginning I was using portfolios built by others. They had a lot of, and we can get a little bit technical on it if you want. They had a lot of income stored into it, right? Which pays you a 2 or 3% rate of return, and the balance was equity. And as soon as I saw the equity, I went, no, I want long term, so I want all equity for me personally. Not everybody's that.
So meaning income would be you would get more, like you wouldn't reinvest that.
That's correct. Yeah. Well, it grows very little. The income portion of the mutual fund, the cash and equivalents doesn't grow the bonds and equivalents doesn't grow very much. And so those early accounts had a lot of that in there. But as soon as I started building my own accounts, my own portfolios with the mutual funds, the average last 10 years has been between 9.5% and 12.5%.
Okay.
Yeah. So and the rule of 72, which you're familiar with that, right? You take 72 divided by the rate of return. The answer is how many years it takes for your money to double, right? So 72 divided by 12 is 6. So every 6 years your money doubles, right? So that's where we're at. I would say that probably most of my clients right now are sitting between that 9.5%, and there's some that are about 14% because the last couple of years have been very good, very generous in the equity markets, especially the people that dollar cost average right into it. So for me, it was a combination of those things. I went, nobody knows this. I can build wealth. Other people can build wealth, and people really just need to be literate, right? So that's what got me into it. That's like a 25-minute introduction.
Well, that's perfect. That
yeah.
answered some of our other questions here, but
yeah, probably, yeah.
So let's talk a bit about the difference between. So a lot of people, like I said, think about investing and they think about real estate, and real estate in Ontario especially, it's gone up, doubled in the last, I would say, almost 5 years. I think it doubles, historically it doubles every 15 years, but the last 5 years it's really doubled. So what do you suggest for people to do? Like how much of their income should go towards real estate or whatever type of investing, and how much of it, like is there normally a number on how much money of your income should go towards mutual funds investing?
So the first thing I would say, it depends on your comfort with risk and risk tolerance. That's the first question. The second question I always have for people is, how much hands-on do you want? Or how much hands-on do you have time for? Because the amount of hands-on that people want and have time for are very often two different things, right? So if you are somebody the other thing is, I've had people tell me, I don't want to be a landlord. Okay, let's talk about mutual funds. Some people say, no, I like being a landlord. Okay, let's talk about real estate, right? So all of those questions have to be answered, and they're very specific, right? So I can't, it's very difficult to just give a bland, right? And so, but I'll tell you what I do. So for Tina and I, for my wife and I, we do a couple of different things. But what I like to do is we buy a house, and we've done this for the last couple of years, or since about the time that I got sick. We'll buy a house. We'll have a large enough down payment for it so that we have at least $450 to $500 of cash flow per month, free and clear. That's net of taxes and any expenses. And then we take that and we put it into mutual funds every month. And in order for us to reach our FIN number, originally was, like I said, was about 1.6 million. We had our 10 grand, we put that in. And based on dollar cost averaging, the market rates of return projections, or historical, how we looked at them, we would need to put away like another $500 a month, right? And just keep adding that to it, and we would reach our FIN number. And so for me, the first thing I looked at was, okay, I love real estate. I don't mind being a landlord. I've got some time, right? Because I had done business and stuff. And at that time, I still had some crews going. And so I looked at it and I went, okay, I can take $500 a month. I can put it in here. That will now fund my retirement, right? So the answer to your question is you can position that any way, but it has to work for your lifestyle, right? It has to work for your risk tolerance. Well, how do you determine risk tolerance? And one of the things I always ask my clients this question. Some of them listening will probably be like, yeah, actually I heard them say that. If you had $10,000 in there today, and in about a year from now, it had dropped its value from 10,000 to about 9,000, would you go to the bathroom and vomit? Like I call it the stomach reaction risk tolerance. Like, would that make you want to vomit? If that's the case, let's have a different discussion. Right?
I guess there's a lot of people that cannot handle lost or just.
But once we understand how it works, but if you take real estate as an example, if you've got 10 clients, or if you got one client that's looking at buying 10 houses over the next, say, 20 years, and he bought one now, and we'll just pick a number and say 100,000, and he bought another one in year 2, and it was 120, and he bought another one in year 3, and it was 160. Then he bought one in year 4 for 100. That person probably has enough knowledge to understand that, yes, the one he bought over here for 160 is still only worth 100, but he also knows that the first one he bought is 100 as well, and that'll go up again, right? That's dollar cost averaging. So then if he sells that whole portfolio, say 20 years down the road, they'll all be worth 200. Where did he make his money? In year 1 and year 4, right? That's where he makes his money. And so mutual funds is exactly like that. Once people understand, and so I found that very interesting with most of my clientele. What happened was, as soon as I started educating them on that part, like the dollar cost averaging part, so now I get 2 kinds of calls in a down market. 2022 was a down year. It dropped. The average mutual fund portfolio that I had built dropped somewhere between 9 and 15% by August-ish of 2022. So I had got 2 types of phone calls. One type was, should we pull our money out? And the other type was, I've got some money. The money's down. I should put it in right now, right? But the people that were dollar cost averaging through the year, every month or every week, depending on how it's set up, they were putting money in. They were just like, I got very few phone calls. It just goes, right? And so once people understand that, and this is something that I really, really think people need to understand. If there's one thing that anybody takes away from this, is that the rising and dropping of the value of an item is not risk. That's volatility.
And that's just part of it.
Without volatility, it's very difficult to make money, right? Especially in mutual funds, right? You need volatility. You actually want it. So when I explain that to people, it's like, no, you actually want some volatility in here. That's what, especially if you've got money to deposit. Now, if you're 65 years old and you're retiring, different conversation, totally different conversation. But if you're still in your growth phase, you actually want volatility. It's your best friend. It's how you make money, right? So that's how I look at that. So it depends on whether or not real estate, what percentage you buy real estate, what percentage you'd put into mutual funds. For some people, it's all real estate, and I just say, you know what? Come back to me when you're ready to put your money out of real estate and into mutual funds. You're good where you are. I've actually had some people where I advised them. I said, no, you really understand what you're doing there. Like, keep going, have at it.
Because that's how it kind of is for me. Like, we're heavy into real estate, and I cannot justify the 9, 10, 12% return versus what I can do with real estate right now. But what I do need to consider is long-term investing. I think I should start setting a set. Now, we do invest with Primerica as well, but
Okay.
I think we should up our numbers and look at something more long-term now that there is some income coming in. A lot of it's being reinvested, but there's some income coming in. I think we should look at the long-term strategy.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that, like, I have people that I talk to about my finances, like all of our, like, I own shares in a couple of different companies, and then I do a little bit of my own trading, which is a byproduct of everything else. But anyway, and then I invest 10% of our income plus the rental rate of return into mutual funds, right? Excuse me. But I have financial advisors that I use for myself that are not involved in the Primerica world, right? Like, you can't be a Primerica agent if you want to be my advisor, right? But one of the things that I wanted to do spend my money on a certain thing, and the guy's like, Jake, this really doesn't line up with the thing that you believe in, with your overall vision, with your overall goal. And I went, really? And he said, yeah, it does not. And so I decided not to do that because he gave me that warning, right? And so the reason I tell that story is because of this. If the average person, what I try and tell my clients is this: if you make your minimum, so figure out what your FIN number is. If your financial independence number is 1.6 million, figure out if you have enough savings right now and enough income to support that you can reach that in mutual funds. If that's the case, and you can do that, and you still have money to invest, the rest of that money, do with it whatever you want. If you then have real estate to invest in, that's awesome. Let's go do that. If you don't, then you need to consider which vehicle you think is best suited for your personality, risk tolerance, risk capacity, how much money do you have to lose, and that sort of thing, right? Those are some of the keys, whether or not you use all one vehicle, which might be real estate for some, or all mutual funds for the other, or can you build your nest egg here and still do some of this other stuff, right? Because now you can go do whatever you want with your quote unquote play money, right? That's how I think about that question. I don't know if that even answers.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So let's talk a bit about the compound, and again, to help me understand the effect of long-term investments.
Sure.
Like, give us some examples of somebody putting in, I don't know, 10,000 or 50,000, and starting today, what that looks like in 20 years,
20 years,
30 years, 40, 50 years.
Let's go 30 years. So if you're 35, you can start to age 65. So that's 30 years, right? 360 months. So I just use a calculator to run it, and then anybody can pull up the S&P 500 index chart, and you know that equities have the rate of return has been between 10 and 14% per year for the last 30 years, right? So we know that. So I'll just use conservatively 10%. And you take somebody, let's just pick a number and say you've got 20 grand saved at the age of 35, and you put away, let's say 10% of your income, your take-home income is $500 a month, right? By the time you're 65, that should be, based on today's markets and historical, about $1.5 million.
So how much a month are we putting in continuously?
$500.
500 a month.
500 a month.
So that's not that only. That's like eating out 3 times.
Yeah, exactly.
So save that, put that into.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
$20,000 it's a good chunk of money, but it's not. At 35, you should have 25 or 20 grand.
I actually have, and I don't have time. We won't have time to go through all this. I kind of have a net worth chart that I think about. So when I meet the average 35-year-old, I say, "What's your net worth?" And then they say it's well, first of all, what is net worth, right? Assets minus liabilities. And if there's no passive income at all in that person's life, then I look at, okay, what's your net worth? And this is the other thing. If you can, do a net worth statement for yourself every 6 months. Write it down, and don't put it on a computer chart. I don't care, but take a notepad and just write it down and put it in your wallet. So the next time you go to pay for something or pull your credit card out, it's there, right? What is my net worth? Do it every 6 months. But anyway, I have a chart of what I use on what your net worth should be at age 35, 20, 40, 55, in order for you to retire financially independent, right? But this number specifically here, 1.5 million, somebody's going to say, why do I need $1.5 million to retire at age 65? Well, if you look at inflation today, what number, if I said to you today, how much money are you going to need to live if your kids were married out of the house and your house was paid for and cars were paid for and you had no debt? You buy groceries and pay your taxes. How much would you need today? What would you say? Just pick a number. Don't give me your real number, but pick a number.
Say 50 grand.
50 grand a year. So call it $4,000 a month. Can we say that? Mm-hmm. So historically, we know that inflation, if you measure inflation, and that's actually something that if you look at, this is going to be weird on the video, but there's something called the big picture. I think I can hold that up. AGF makes that for us. And I won't go through the charts. There's a bunch of information on there, but they measure actual inflation. So if you go back to 1934, so we've had a lot of ups and downs through that time. All kinds of wars and all kinds of stuff has happened. But inflation measures about 3.5% per year, meaning that everything that you buy today, like household goods, that's why I asked about the household goods. So your clothes, gas, food, and utilities and taxes, they go up about 3.5% per year, right? So if we go 35 years, we say that $4,000 per month, you're going to need $13,000 by the time you retire.
In that 30 years.
In that 30 years to buy the exact same thing you do today for $4,000, right?
And I guess it's hard to see in the future, but you talk to any old guy now and you say, like, you went shopping and you spent $400 for shopping.
And you had 4 items.
Yeah.
Right? And 2 of them might have been a pack of cigarettes. But like, I looked at, like, I went into No Frills, and I'm just going to call No Frills out here on this. I was shocked. Maybe other grocery stores are even more money. Maybe Costco's more money. I have no idea. But Tina and I, just before I came down here, I don't go grocery shopping a whole lot with her, but I went into No Frills with her, and a 375-gram pack of bacon was $10. I just about had a heart attack. The last time I remembered buying it was $2.99.
And that was probably in 1930, would have been 20 cents maybe, or
less.
5 cents.
Probably 3-4 cents, yeah. So that's inflation, right? Do you remember when they took maybe you're too young for this, they took the majority of the taxes off cigarettes in like 1994, 93, 94? I guess you're too young. When were you born?
96.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I happen to remember that. And a pack of cigarettes, because my dad smoked at the time, a pack of cigarettes went from like $9 to like $5, right? And it was so cheap. What are they today?
14, 15, 16 bucks.
Yeah, I think in Alberta they're close to 20 bucks.
Yeah.
And right. And I remember in the 2020 inflation craziness, I went in and bought a little bottle of yellow ABS glue because I was working on a plumbing project at home. And in my mind, I had remembered them always being 79 cents since the last time I had done plumbing, which was been maybe 4 years before that. 79 cents for a bottle of glue, $3. That was like a 3 year, 4 year period, right? That's not 3 or 4% inflation. That's way more.
Yeah.
But if you look at the 90s, inflation was very, very low, right? The mid 90s. At the end of the 90s, it kind of kicked up. But in the early 90s, it was very low. 70s and 80s was really, really high, right? So we know that we're going to have an upcycle. My suspicion right now, and maybe we can talk about this more specifically, my suspicion is right now inflation is going to come down and it's going to stay down for a while. I think there's going to be so much with what the Liberal Carney government is doing right now. I think inflation is going to stay very, very low for a little while. Equity markets don't tend to do very well in low inflation markets. They tend to do better. But having said that, they just dropped the Bank of Canada dropped the interest rate. They're trying to stoke the fires of inflation because they see the same thing that I saw. Mm-hmm. As soon as I saw the interest rates come down, I went, they're thinking exactly the same thing I'm thinking, right? So,
yeah, but people are hesitant to spend money right now, and that's inflation.
Yeah.
People spend.
But back to our topic here, that was totally a rabbit trail there, right? But to our topic here, so $1.5 million, and you need $13,000 a month to live on. That's not a very long period of time. So my thought on that is that you keep your $1.5 million invested, and you take out 10% of your total asset value in your mutual funds out per year, and you've got $150,000 a year income. Mm-hmm. Pay a little bit of tax on that, and you're pretty close to your $13,000. Because CPP is not going to go up as much as inflation does. Right. CPP and OAS and GIS for old folks.
So don't rely on that.
Don't rely on that. No. If you get it, use it, great. Give it to poor people. Do whatever you want with it, but don't rely on it, right?
So this is $10,000 to start.
Yep.
And continuously invest another $500 a month.
Yep.
For 30 years. Gets you, what was that number again?
$1.5 million.
$1.5 million.
Yeah, that should be somewhere around that based on the last 35 years of equity markets, yeah. But one of the ways you get that is because you're dollar cost averaging, you're buying into the dips, right? And so I think that for people to understand the equity markets, they have to be educated, right? And again, it goes to that financial literacy, yeah. So yeah, that's how I think about that, is why 1.5, why 1.6 million? Well, if you're 20 today, you're gonna need $2.5 million to just make basically ends meet, to survive, right? And it's like, you're talking to a 20-year-old guy who's just starting out, your aim is $2 million. They're like, what are you talking about? It's easy to get to you. It's easy to get there for you because it's going to cost you like $150 a month because you have so much compounding time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I just remember even like 5-10 years ago, it was rare that you came across somebody like a millionaire, somebody that had $1 million of net worth, and now you see them all over. Like it's just
they're everywhere.
Like you're not even doing well if you're not a millionaire, almost, right?
I would say this, that the economic divide in Canada is happening way faster than people realize. Like there are way more people that are net worth millionaires. There's also way more people that are really, really poor, right? And that, I blame it solely on literacy. Solely on literacy. They just don't know. They don't understand what money actually is. And this thing that Cardi's talking about bringing in that, what do they call this? The home building initiative. They're going to set up a home building arm of the federal government. The disaster is coming, right? Give it 4 or 5 years, it will be a disaster.
And who's paying for that?
Yeah,
it's
we are.
all the middle class, lower class.
Yeah,
people
middle class,
mostly,
lower.
right?
Yes, because they are the ones who get hurt the most. I made this comment once to somebody, and it wasn't a very popular one at the time, but I stand by it. The people that make $120,000 a year on average in Canada, and Alberta is very similar to here now in terms of cost. There are pockets still that are different and pockets here that are more, but the people that make $120,000 are some of the poorest people. If you're making $50,000, $60,000 a year, you know you're not making a lot of money. So you're scrounging by. You're living in the cheapest rental you can get. You're driving a car that has no value, is worth $5. You know, you're couponing all your groceries. You're never buying a coffee. You're never eating anything in a restaurant, right? You know you're poor. Those people have the ability to save because they have the will to save, right? Mm-hmm. And no bank offers them a credit card. As I remember one year, as actually I think I can tell this story. I don't think I've ever told anybody this story, but I'll tell it. We had a year in construction where we did really, really poorly, and our net income was that year, I think our would have been like $20,000. We had a small mortgage and a couple of things we had to pay for, but I mean we hardly ate that year, if I'm being honest. And we got a call from a credit card company. They're like, "Yeah, we'd like to offer you a credit card." And my wife's like, "Do you know our income for last year?" The guy's like, "No." She said, "Do you want me to tell it to you?" He said, "Yeah, you'll have to put it on the form anyway." So she told him. He's like, "Okay, never mind." Poor people don't get credit card offers, right? Rich people do. The $120,000 earners do. And so I think that there's a couple of things that happen. One, it's psychological. You think you have money, so you can afford 2 takeouts at least.
Well, and
right?
plus people feel good about when the credit card company offers you a bunch of money.
Exactly, because it's like a compliment. No, dude, it's not. They just want your money, right? And so they pay more taxes. They pay way more proportionately of their income to taxes.
Well, I did the math recently, and if you like that income category and you add all the different taxes, carbon taxes, it's not only your taxes that you pay off of your income, you pay a carbon tax. Like there's so many different taxes. It's right around 50%.
Yeah, right around 50%.
So right around half.
So you got 60 grand.
Yeah.
So the person who's making 50 grand might pay $10,000 in taxes. The difference in gap is only 20,000. And I promise you, their mortgage payments, credit card payments, and their wasted money on takeout and fast food is more than 20 grand a year. Right, so they're actually poorer than the people that are making 50 grand. Not always, very often. Right, and I don't paint everybody with the same brush, but there was a person I said that to, and he was making 120 grand a year. I said, "You are poorer than some of my clients that make 50 grand a year."
And I've seen it with my real estate clients too. I've had clients that are making 60 grand a year, and they're saving up more than the 120 grand clients.
Because they have the will to do it, right? Mm-hmm. So when it comes to investing, the reason I tell that story is when it comes to investing, willpower is way more important than how much you make, right? Do you have the willpower to do it? Can you actually go and buy a house? Like, do you have the willpower to spend time on realestate.ca? Do you have the willpower to go and spend 2 evenings a week for 6 months with a real estate agent driving around the city looking for a house? Do you have the willpower to do it, right? Do you have the willpower to let somebody set up an account where you get $500 or $1,000 a month taken out of your bank account and into an investment? Do you have the willpower to do it?
And then I think the real willpower would come in once you're in it for 10, 15 years and you see a big chunk of money, the urgency to want to take that out and go buy a boat or something.
Yeah, I think there was a big study that was done in, it was a 15-year study, I believe. And they tracked a bunch of people who had financial advisors and who didn't. And I won't quote the exact numbers, but I think in 15 years, the person who had a 15-year advisor had 3.5 times more net worth than the person who had like a 2-year advisor, right?
Wow.
And the reason for that, and so they were always asked, why do you have so much more? Why do you have so much more? One of the biggest reasons was because they would say, well, we could call our financial advisor and we would talk it through. So you're a sounding board. So this robo-advising stuff doesn't provide that. right? Like it has its place, and there are people that are going to do fine with it. I'm not opposed to technology. I think technology is going to do so many things that are going to make our lives a lot easier. It has so many dangers in it too, just like everything else, just like cars do. But they can't replace that. Technology can't replace somebody saying, "Hey, what do you think about this?"
Now, do you do that for your clients as well? If they call you, hey, should I be buying this boat? Should
Oh, I
be...
do it all the time. Yeah. Do I need a new quad? I need a new quad every weekend because I love going to the mountains, right? But I don't buy it every weekend. I'd love to. And so I always tell clients, well, how's your retirement fund? Well, it is, we're still contributing. I said, okay, how much money you got saved? Well, this. Do you have an emergency fund? Yeah. Okay. You can do whatever you want with that money. Makes no difference to me. And they get a call. Yeah, we got that 10 grand there. So you just put it in there. Like, we didn't need to spend it after all. And it's just that sounding board, right?
Yeah, I have clients too that have been looking at houses for a while now. They've kind of just given up because of the price of them. And they're renting and they're buying, but they want to feel good about something. So they buy a quad or they buy a vehicle or something. Yeah. So,
what, can I ask you a question? I think about this a lot actually, and it has a relation, it's related to the business, in your business. What, if I said to you, tell me one thing why you do what you do, what would you say? Like just one thing.
As a realtor?
Doesn't matter. Realtor, your AMT investment business that you do, your a little bit of land development, all of that stuff that you do. Everything you do, your hot tubs, your saunas, everything that you do, why do you do it? What is the objective? Or if I said two, what would they be?
Well, the biggest, I think, is trying to create value to people. Yeah. That's a big one for me. I don't know if there's a...
No, that's exactly what I was thinking about, because somebody's asked me, why do you do what you do? And I say, I create a lot of value for a lot of people, right? And it's like, if I create enough value that at some point they have 100 grand in their bank account and they say, we want to go buy a boat, I created that value, they can do that, right? They have the potential to retire financially independent, and they may still do that depending on where they're at. But the other part of that value that I bring is that I think is very valuable is that sounding board. And a real estate agent, I believe you do the same thing. So the average client comes in and says, well, what do you think of this house? How many clients do you have that don't say that?
Yeah, most of them, yeah, you're a lot more than an advisor than you are a salesperson.
That's right.
Like you don't need even, I argue that you don't even need sales skills to do a sale. Like,
yeah, you need
the product will sell itself. If the house is good, it'll sell itself. Yeah. If you have that relationship with your clients and they can trust you,
yep.
So you're an advisor, soundboard, right? Yeah.
And again, that's one of the things that I was actually talking with my son about that. Do you think that, and we were talking about all kinds of pretty big, grand visions, and it was so much fun. And I think he's up to something. But anyway, we were talking about will the role of a advisor, real estate agent, whatever it is, mutual fund portfolio, will the role of financial advisor, will the role of an advisor go away with technology? In real estate, I don't think it can, because I still want to know what you think. Mm-hmm. Hey, you've seen 20 houses this week. What do you think of this one that I'm about to buy? I want to be able to ask you that.
Mm-hmm. And even for myself, like, you know, you look at news headlines, oh, the market is going down. So, some are saying it's going back up again, right? And for me, I can look at stats, I can see what stuff sold, but I still want to talk to agents that are in the city that are doing a lot of deals to get some insight. Yep. What is the market actually doing, right?
Yeah. And that robo-advising cannot.
Like, I cannot find that anywhere online, because the stuff that we see in the field is always sometimes 2-3 weeks before it reports on any data sheets, right?
Yeah. And also, you don't, the other thing that the data can't report is how people are feeling, right? So what I like to do is I talk to a lot of people. I just got accused of that again yesterday. We were in a restaurant, and I think I talked to 5 different people when we were in there. And one guy held the door for us. He was coming out. I held my hand out. I said, I'm not going to get a tip. And he just glared at me, right? Another old man was done paying his bill when I walked up to the front to pay the bill, and I just handed him my bill. You know, he just looked at me, and I said, I got another one for you. And he just had a great time. He laughed. He was, that's the best one I've heard yet. Comes over and pats me on that shoulder, you know, had a great time. Anyway, I talked to a lot of people, but that's the feeling. So if I can get more than 2 minutes of conversation with people, I want to know, how do you feel about the current economy? What do you think is happening? Forget politics. What do you think the value of our purchasing power is? I see what you're talking about. Then you get real information, right? That kind of conversation with people, no data can report that. No data can fish that out of people.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It doesn't work. So that's why I think advising will stay around. Financial advising will stay around.
Yeah, I have no doubt.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. What else did you want to ask me? Anything about Primerica specifically?
I mean, I think we've talked about most of the stuff with, I guess one thing that I'd like to talk to you about, there's a lot of guys in this area that I've been approached by a lot of different Primerica or
have you
reps or
really?
sales. Yeah,
Okay.
a lot of them.
Okay.
And there are always people that are trying to set up an appointment to get their, whoever represents them. They're basically just under the wing of somebody with more experience, right?
Yeah.
So that just tells me that there's people that are focusing on maybe recruitment more than on the investment.
Yeah.
I have a very hard time finding, and even the guy that we deal with, we've been dealing with him for 6 years. He doesn't call me on a regular basis. It's been, I don't know, probably 2 years since I talked to him.
Yeah.
So how do you?
So I can speak to that a little bit. Yeah. Or sorry, let you finish.
I was going to say, where do you stand on this, and how are you different than most of the agents around here? Because around here, there's been I've even talked to some people, and they say, "Oh yeah, Primerica's a scam." You know, it's just, there's been I think some people are pushing it too much.
That's your opinion of it. So I would say. I would start by saying with this, I told you how I was introduced to it, right? So I won't retell that story. I didn't know that such a thing existed, and I was like, wow, this is fantastic, right? A couple of years into it, not even a couple of years, a couple of months into it, I had just done basically a financial needs analysis for a few of my friends and family, and given them, well, the other thing we worked on a lot was their debt. Okay, figure out a way how to get rid of debt. Like, how do we do that, right? Some of my friends and family, and they were like, well, can I do that too? And so I have never, that's not true. Very rarely gone out to try and recruit somebody into the business, because I didn't set out to build a big business where I had a bunch of people working underneath me, so to speak. I didn't want that originally. And so I'm very, very meticulous and particular about who I bring on into the business. And I have brought some people on that are very, very good. And so I came across a very different business model within Primerica within a couple of years. It wasn't where we were, that wasn't the case. And it was a very good system there, is what I'm trying to say. But so all that to say this, Primerica's strength is also its weakness. And the strength is this, that as soon as you sign the application to become a representative for Primerica, you become your own business. So one of the things you hear in the Primerica business, and I think this is a very positive thing, is that you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself, right? So you start your own business out right away, and you can run it as you see fit, as long as it meets their guidelines and the legal parameters. You can't go outside of that, right? But what that does is, so when I bring you on board, let's say as an example, one of the criteria that head office sets out is that we want you to have a number of people on your team before we give you certain contract levels. If I have a criticism of Primerica, it's that. That should have nothing to do with it. I would set the criteria around what's your client retention, what is your new client acquisition, and what is how many people, what is your own personal finances look like, or a mixture of those things. Because I think you have to have credibility to be a financial advisor.
Absolutely.
One of the huge criticisms that I hear about Primerica, and I still hear it in Alberta, although I think we've got a team of about 3 or 4 people that are really good. And one of the things that we've done is we've changed that reputation in our local area. But one of the huge criticisms is this: no, that guy's a plumber. How can he he doesn't know anything about money? No, that guy's a drywaller. He can't know anything about money. No, that guy, right? It's a valid criticism. The reason that they always have somebody else with them, as you pointed out, is that would be somebody like me who's been doing it since 2017 to come and oversee the thing that they're doing, right? But because you're an independent representative, you're allowed to run the business how you see fit. And so the idea that a lot of people have is, if I go and I recruit a bunch of people, then I don't have to go to work anymore. I'm the opposite. I'm as retired now as I'll probably ever be, right? And so what ends up happening is a lot of people run around and recruit a bunch of people, and the turnover is the same as it is in, let's say, a welding shop or a Tim Hortons or probably even real estate agents. People come in and they go. They come in. A bank is going to have that, right? So you have the same turnover rate. The difference is that if I'm your financial advisor, but I'm only in the industry for 6 months and then I take off, that hurts way more than if I go work at a welding shop for 6 months and then I go find a different job. You are way more impacted by that than the company that hired me, right? But people treat it the same. So the problem doesn't lie with the Primerica system. It lies with how people treat it, right? It lies with how the agents that are doing their recruiting treat it. So I've actually had people come to me and say, hey, I would like to do what you do for a business. And I say, great idea. Go get licensed and come back to me. If you can go get licensed and come back to me and say, I still want to do it, I'll think about it, right? And some people I actually just said, look, I appreciate you coming to me and you like what I do for you. This just doesn't fit for you. Like, you can't, it's just not going to fit. So there's one person, one time I said, I think you would be a really, really good fit. And he's doing very well. He's not in my base shop, but he's doing very well. He's not even with my team. He's somewhere else. But he asked me, why do you think that? Right off the bat, he asked me, why do you think that? And I said, because your own financial house is in order, right? And I said, you really, really care about other people, because I had set up their financial portfolio, right? And then the other part of it is, so that's one side of it. So you get to run it however you see fit. The other part of it is, if I can go and I can recruit a bunch of people, they will all probably sell life insurance policies to all of their friends and families.
So Primerica does life insurance as well, not only investing.
That's right. Yeah. So you have to think about it in three different ways, or at least this is how it makes sense in my brain. There's Primerica Life, that's the life insurance company. There's Primerica, that is the overarching company that basically takes in the income and spends it and sends it to their agents and stuff, right? And then you have PFSL Investments, the brokerage, right? PFSL Investments, the brokerage, deals with the companies that sell the mutual funds. Primerica doesn't sell mutual funds. The mutual fund companies do. And I'll just name a whole bunch of them so we don't get tied up in legal problems. Fidelity, Mackenzie, Invesco, Franklin Templeton, Fidelity, those type of companies. It's the same idea as if you went to All Weather Windows and wanted to buy windows, you have to buy it through, or that's at least a company over there, you have to buy that through like a local lumberyard. They would be a brokerage, right? So PFSL Investments is a brokerage. Primerica Life is the life insurance company that we deal with, right? And so the idea is, and again, it falls into the financial literacy thing. If I can recruit 20 people and they go sell 20 policies, then I can make X number of dollars this month, not future, this month. So all of it is short-sighted and short vision, right? If that makes sense. Me personally, there are people that need life insurance. If I do a financial needs analysis and I see the need for a life insurance policy, I go, hey, do you guys have coverage in place somewhere? They say yes. I say, can I take a look at it? Can I review it as we're doing the rest of it? Well, yeah, of course, because we need to know. There are times where I replace it, because Primerica really does offer the best life insurance policies that are on the market in terms of term policies.
Okay.
Apples to apples, they are the best. I've compared a lot of them. They really are the best. Because I wouldn't have mine with Primerica if I didn't think they were the best. I don't care if I pay more. They really are the best, right? And so if they need a better policy, or if they need a policy that isn't garbage, like the whole life, we'll talk about that if you want, they'll replace it. But my idea is to get them financially independent, because the average client who invests over time, for me, the longer they invest, the more money I make every month, because I get paid trails every month, right? So that's a really long way to answer the fact that the agents are fair, some of them are very, because they're in need of cash right now, just like everybody else, it's very difficult for them to see the value of building a long-term business, right? And for me, I immediately saw the value of passive income from the mutual fund portfolio side. But then I thought, okay, if I don't do a good job of managing your mutual funds, or not yours, but other people's, then people aren't going to invest with me. But if I do a good job of managing them, then I'm going to get a lot more referrals, right? The more referrals I get, the more money I invest, I get a pay raise every month, right?
But if you focus only on the life insurance, you might make, I don't know, $1,000, $2,000 kind of up front.
Yeah, just off of a
to sell the
policy.
policy.
Yeah. And then you're out. You never get paid again off of that policy, right? But if I have 20 agents out there that are all brand new and they're not licensed in fact, so that's the other thing. You have to have 2 licenses.
Okay.
You have to have your life insurance license, and you also have to have your investment license. I shouldn't say it like that. You should have your investment license. Anybody that wants to do business with me, I send them to both of those. You go get your life insurance license, and you go get your investment license. If you're not willing to do both, I'm not willing to have you on my team. I can't train you if you're not willing to invest people's money properly. There's places for insurances too, but right. So that's how I look at it. If you're not willing to do both, I'm not willing to train you. That's not worth my time. It's not worth your clients, your friends and families. I'm not exposing them to that. Right. So therefore, I'm always protecting that reputation, not just of me, but also of Primerica, right? Because there are areas where Primerica really has had a bad reputation because all they do is recruit a bunch of people that never do anything.
Well, it's interesting. Like like I said, in the last number of years, there's been a lot of people that have reached out to me about Primerica. So there's obviously no lack of agents in this area, and yet you still come from Alberta. You come here,
and I still do a lot
growing.
of business here.
Yeah.
I do a lot of business here. Yeah. Having said that, I have no agents here in Ontario. I would love to have a few. I would like to have 2 agents here that are good, hardworking people that don't want to just recruit a bunch of people. You know what I mean? Like, I would love to have a few people here because the workload is really, really getting very high, right? But that's how I look at it. And then in terms of one of the other things that Primerica gets accused of, I think, somewhat unfairly, is the pyramid thing that you mentioned. So if you start to work at a welding shop, we'll use that as an example. You show up there, you start to work, you're going to be paid what that entry-level job is. Once you receive some training, you'll get a little bit more. Once you receive more training, you'll get a little bit more. As seniority grows, you'll get a little bit more, right? There's probably what you would call maybe around 7 or 8 different levels of compensation. I think real estate has kind of something like that too, right? But there's probably 7 or 8 different levels of compensation inside a welding shop, from the owner down to the new guy, to the supervisors, to the lead hand, to the production manager, to the right.
I guess with
shop,
real
right?
estate, as a real estate agent, it's normally your split. Your office would take X amount until you hit volume, and then you get a higher split. So
Yeah, so they
but
set
yeah,
criteria, right? But in a welding shop, as an example, there's probably 7 or 8, maybe not that many in the smaller ones, but let's say 4 or 5. So Primerica combines those two. They say once you've done X number of policies and business, and the only thing they put in there is you have to have a team. I personally feel that should be removed, but that's just my opinion, and it's worth what it's worth. But as you get more and more training and you are more and more independent, your contract also goes up. So the less supervision I have to do, the less I make off of the work you do. That's no different than a welding shop. That's that. So that criticism isn't really fair, in my opinion. Having said that, though, a lot of people that the attractive part of the business model to them is, I can go get a whole bunch of people recruited and I don't have to work anymore. It's like, I don't want you on my team.
Well, how can you provide value with you're just sitting at home on your couch, and other people are doing the work.
Yeah,
right? Like
I don't want to sit at home and twiddle my thumbs. I want to sit at home and talk to a bunch of people on the phone that I can bring value to, right? So yeah, that's the compensation gets unfairly criticized, though I think Primerica could make some improvements there. Yeah, but the whole thing that it's a pyramid, it really isn't. Pyramid by definition is that you have to be a member in order to participate in the profit, and that you have to buy the product for yourself. If you're a Primerica rep, they don't care if you don't have your life insurance policy with them. They don't even care if all your money's in the bank.
No.
They don't care at all. It's entirely up to you because it's your business. You get to run it how you see fit. So in Primerica, in the U.S., I don't know what it is in the U.S., in Canada, I believe. I'd have to double check this statistic, so don't hold me to it. But I believe it's 95% of Primerica's product is held and owned, so owned insurance and held mutual funds by 95% of it is held by people that are not agents. So that's not a pyramid scheme, right? That's not a pyramid at all, because it's all owned by other people, right? So and the other part is, like I said, you don't have to own their product to be a representative for them, right? To be an agent. So I think that's a bit unfair, but it comes across that way when people market it that way. Right.
And I do like their referral program. You don't see billboards, you don't see ads, you don't There's no telecom marketers calling you around, right? It's all word of mouth. So that part is really good. But I think that's also, like you said, they've got a really good system, but people kind of take advantage of that.
Yeah, people abuse it. Yeah, just like everything else, it gets abused, I think, in some areas. But there are guys that do a really, really phenomenal job of it. I'm trying to be one of those.
You've done a great job, I would say.
Well, we'll see. Time will tell. I got another 40 years to go.
Yeah.
Then we'll judge.
All right, let's go back to one of the last
go back to what we were
here.
actually talking about.
Yeah, one of the last questions that I had here was just, you see a lot of people in Ontario and Alberta, you deal with a lot of money and people's financial stuff. What do you, and this is not really about investing, but what do you see the economy right now, not just the economy, but what do you see in the market right now? Like I'm experiencing that cost of living is substantially higher.
Yeah, which we talked about a little bit, right?
Yeah, like how do you, what would you recommend to people? What can they do besides investing here to just go through this stage of life or
of the next 5 years? We're going to
probably next 5 years that are going to be pretty rough. Like just dive into that a little bit. What do you predict? Is it going to get better or worse before it gets better? Or
I think we're going to see, one of the things that I want to comment on is that, and it has to do with that conversation, is that I think that we used to see equity cycles in a 5-year trend. So I always tell people, and I still talk about this like this, in every 5 years, you're going to see about 3.5 years of up and 1.5 year of down in equity cycles.
So would you say we are kind of in that down right now?
In equity markets themselves, no, we just came out of a down. Yeah, in 2022, like we're still in the up, and then there was another tiny little spike. The point that I want to make is I think those cycles are shortening.
Mm-hmm.
Because
so it's a lot more.
Yeah, it's a lot more jagged, so to speak. It's a lot more up and down. The reason I say that is because information is so readily available. So with the next thing that I want to say, this is a warning to that, right? So when I say a 5-year cycle, if the cycles are going to continue to shorten the way that I kind of mentally think about how they are, then my advice means nothing, right? If they're going to shorten as much as I think they will. I think we're going to see on average, I think we're going to have to start talking about equity cycles in 2-year cycles, 2.5-year cycles, cut it in half. So you'll see 1.5 year of up and then a half year of down. I think that's how we're going to have to start talking about it. But I think we're going to have to start talking about investment and income and lifestyle that way. So when you say, what can a person do? I think that, just have a drink here first, before I launch into my next rant. I think that for the average person, the ability to grow your income in the next 5 years is going to be easier than the ability to cut costs.
So instead of worrying about saving money, rather focus on growing.
Really focus very heavily on, can I increase my income? And when I increase my income, do not let lifestyle creep in. Mm. Willpower. It boils down to willpower. So if you're making $100,000 this year, and you can go to your employer and you can say, look, my seniority, my commitment, my loyalty, my everything that I've learned how to weld upside down now, or whatever. I've taken a oxyacetylene welding. I took welding class when I was in trade school, so that was fun. I've taken that class now. Now I'm more valuable to you. Now I get can I get $120,000 next year as an income? Well, yeah, for sure. You've brought so much more value to the business. I think that's how everybody should approach a raise. Never give me a raise or I quit. That I don't give your boss an ultimatum. You're going to get an ultimatum, right? Generally speaking. But anyway, I bring more value. Therefore, I believe I should be paid more. Do you agree? Okay, so you get that extra $20,000 and you pay an extra $5,000 in taxes, so you got 15. That other $15,000 deliberately needs to be invested into something, whether it's mutual funds or real estate or something that goes up in value that you know and understand. I have a very good friend of mine does classic cars. He's a client of mine, but he loves cars. He understands them. He knows exactly what they're worth, what they were worth 10 years ago. He puts money into cars. I'm like, dude, that is so risky. And he says, I don't like the mutual funds very much because they're too risky. And I look at a car and I go.
So he's using the car as an investment?
As an investment, yeah, because he knows them so well, right? Good for you. Whatever money you can possibly scrape together, save it. That's my advice. Whatever money you can, and figure out a way to make just a little bit more money, however you need to do it.
And whether you don't feel like you need it now, in the next 12 months, you'll probably need it.
Yeah, you will. It's going to get very expensive. Yeah. Well, and then if it doesn't happen right away, so when I mentioned earlier, I think inflation is going to stay down. Inflation will stay down, but it'll be very short-lived, right? And then it's going to skyrocket. The other thing I would say is it's going to be very pockety, right? Like where we live, Taber, Coaldale, Lethbridge, even Bow Island, Medicine Hat, that Highway 3 corridor is expanding and booming at an unprecedented rate. That cannot last. There will be a slowdown. It looks like to me, and you talk about this a lot more than I do. It looks to me like in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, things are really starting to come down a little bit.
Yeah, we've kind of hit that ceiling, and now it's slowly.
You're going to see a bit of a contraction, right? I think that's what I'm seeing based on businesses that I'm talking to. And I'm out in the Tillsonburg-Elmer area, if you want to call it that. There, people are having that same kind of conversation, not intensely as they are here. In the Leamington-Windsor area, conversations I've had with people there over the last 3-4 days, no one's talking about it. They're still talking about growth. Maybe I'm in the wrong circle there, I don't know, but it seems a lot more.
Well, if you look at, I was actually studying the home prices in that area the last week here a bit, and you can buy a house for 200 to 300, 400,000. You can buy a nice house there. There is nothing on the market in this area that's worth moving into under 400 anywhere.
But their incomes over there are very similar to their incomes here. So that's what I mean. I think they are more stable. They probably have a ways to go up yet. So it's going to be very pockety. Alberta's going to be no different. I think Calgary's peaked. I really, really think so. There's a lot of reasons for that. Edmonton, I think, has peaked. But in the southern area, it's been ignored for so long. There's a lot of stuff happening there. The population increase there is really, really high, really, really quickly. And so over the next 5 years, everything you can, put it into something that you believe will grow in value over the next 5 years. And figure out a way to make more money. You have to figure out a way to make more money, whether that's actively pursuing a second job, a second career. I always tell people, if you have an idea, I was visiting, I can't tell that story, I'm under NDA, so I won't do that. But I talk to people normally, and I'm like, in terms of income, what's an idea you've had but never explored? Just give me one. They're like, oh, well, maybe this or maybe that. Maybe I could flip cars. I'm like, how much do you know about cars? Well, not very much. Actually, I have a mechanic client of mine. He pulled some of his money out of his TFSA, and I'm like, you don't have a lot. Why are you doing that? Like, what are we talking about here? Like, and he came and he sat down. He said, this is what I'm thinking. And he's actually really good at this. He knows cars, what they're worth on the market if you flip them, like the inexpensive cars under $10,000. And he's a mechanic. So he'll go and he'll buy one for $2,000 or $3,000 with a blown engine, and he'll spend his evenings fixing it, and he'll sell it for the value that he put into it in terms of labor, right? So he makes $3,000-4,000 on a car, and he'll do one a month, and he gives me $3,000 a month. Fund his TFSA with his investment. I'm like, he's thinking. I said, why are you doing that? Why are you working so hard? Oh, I want to buy a house. Good thinking.
So if you don't have enough money left over at the end of your paycheck to invest, find a secondary source.
Find a secondary source of income. Yeah, and that's how I look at it. Is people need to. The circles that I'm in, the people that I'm involved with in Alberta, and the people that I'm involved with here, the percentage of people in Ontario that do not want to do side business is much higher than Alberta. Alberta, based on my experience, is more entrepreneurial. So that's an easier conversation to have in Alberta than it is here in Ontario, right? Not across the board. There's pockets of it. But in general here, there are more people here that say, I don't want to work after 5 than there are in Alberta.
I would find, especially in our area, Kitchener, Listowel area, there's a lot of people that just want to have their steady job and go home and rest and nothing after.
And my challenge to them always is you can do that when you're 50. You can't do it now. You'll be in trouble if you do that now. Unless you're making $300,000 a year doing your 9 to 5. Fine, have at it. But everybody else, I think there's going to be problems there, right? That's my take on it. But maybe it's just because I fell in love with the idea of business. Like when my boss asked me, do you want business or do you want to be a carpenter? Do you want to be a carpenter as a business owner, or do you want to be a carpenter as a working for somebody else? Both are noble pursuits. Like, I don't run down the position of employee because everybody needs employees. We're going to need a lot of them. But I think everybody should try and do something.
You still need an alternative source of money investing or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I always tell people too that an employee job is most of the time a dead-end road at some point. Like no matter how much
you don't own your time. That's the big
the
one.
company could sell, or you could get sick and you can't work. Like it's always a dead end road at some point.
Yeah, there's basically 4 or 5 reasons why you have to have money. One is you're going to die, so somebody else is going to need to bury you, and your kids are going to need money. Your wife, if you have it, spouse. 2 is you're going to get sick, you're going to get fired, you're going to get injured. You're going to need to save money, right? Or you're going to retire. That's the 5th one, hopefully, right? So that's I'm like, I can give you 5 solid reasons why you need to save some money.
Yeah, I think those are great reasons.
Yeah, and so if I can then help somebody get out of debt, and I do this with businesses too, I'm like, let's look at where you're spending your money, and let's see what your biggest cost is, and then let's look at if we can drop that one by like 2%. And if the answer is yes, okay, that 2%, what is it? $50 a month? Is it $500? Is it $1,000 a month? How much more money are you putting into the company? And then I'll just set up a corporate account for them with the investment arm, and I'll just put that into there, sock it away. Truck drivers especially, the amount of expenses, I could not be a truck driver. That is a high-risk enterprise. If you want a high-risk enterprise, become a truck driver. There is nothing that I have seen that is higher risk than that. Maybe restaurant, not even. I think it's the highest risk out there, and I know a lot of them. Right, so I look at that and I go, okay, how much money can you save, and what is the objective? Well, let's look at those 5 reasons. Are they valid reasons to put money away? Yeah, they are. Okay. Why are you not doing it? I don't even care at this point if it's not with me. Just put it away, Put it
and everybody has those 5 reasons, right? You cannot go through life without falling into one of those reasons.
Without falling into all of them at some point, except maybe getting fired or injured, right? Everybody's going to get sick.
Everybody's going to die.
Everybody's going to die. Everybody's going to retire, hopefully, right? So you need to, right? So that's one of the things that I think about a lot when I sit with people and they refer people to me. I had a client, a potential client, ended up not doing any business with me, and that's fine. I have two good stories, 2 success stories. One is client came with me and I worked with him for 6 months. I never did a piece of business with him at all. It's my favorite client to this day, but he's financially successful and on track to become financially independent. I have never done business with him. I coached that couple for 6 months. They have not done any business with me. I think that's phenomenal. I love that. Would I like to make some money off of it someday? Yes, I would. But I'm really okay with it. Like, I like it. Another couple came, older gentleman had some money, and I'm like, not older, he was 50. And I said, that will last you half a year. From the age of 50 to 65, I need you to work your tail off if you want to retire. He was really upset with me. And I said, I'm just telling you the truth. His son happened to be a truck driver. And I said, looked at his son, I said, what do you think? And he goes, Dad, Jake's right. You're going to need to work hard if you want to retire. And I went, there you go, right? Another couple, they became my clients. They were a referral from a accounting company. They referred them to me and said, this company, or this Jake I think will help you figure some things out financially for tax purposes. So we just looked at putting money into an RSP for tax reasons for them the first year. So we did that. And I said, what about a bigger picture here? Can we put together a bigger picture? It was kind of a last minute thing. Put $5,000 in, get your taxes reduced, get a bigger child tax credit, and you get all that money back over 2 years, right? In that case. And so I said, what about a bigger picture? Oh, I'll be in debt forever. Like, why do you say that? Well, I make 70 grand a year. We've got $200,000 mortgage on our house, and it's only worth 200. 30 years old, I'm 32, whatever he was, I'm going to be in debt forever. We got car debt. Anyway, I said, well, let me put together a plan for you. You don't have to implement it, but let me put together a plan for you. I gave him his FIN number, and he freaked, just about had a heart attack. And I said, but let me show you how to get there. And I showed him how to get there. And so this would have been 6 years ago. And in the last 5 years, his portfolio happened to have doubled.
Wow.
Yeah, in 5 years. Now, I'm not advertising here when I say that, but his had. In the first 6 years, first year I put a little bit of money in, and then he put in, the second year he saw a little bit of growth, he went, okay. And he took my plan and he went, okay, let's do this. So here's a guy that had no hope, was totally discouraged, embarrassed about his situation. Just about, I think it's about 6 weeks ago, maybe 7 weeks ago now. They sold their house. Now they had gotten some equity because our real estate rose in value, so he had some equity. And he had $100,000 with me, and he took that out and took the equity in his house, and he went and he bought an acreage and paid for half of it. Because the one thing I asked him and his wife, I said, the very first time I met them, I said, what do you want out of life? And he said, I want an acreage and I want it paid for. 5 years later, they moved on to an acreage and had half of it paid for, whatever he is now under 40. That's a success story.
So from no hope to
to actually having what he wanted. And he makes decent money, he can pay for his acreage because it's a small mortgage, right? And I go, all I did was tell him, you need a plan, right? And I don't care if I'm not the guy that's putting the plan together for everybody, but people need to have a plan, right? If that makes sense, right? So I look at that and I talk about, and I could probably tell you 10 of those, right? That where their money has doubled over that shorter period of time. Equity markets have been very good. But yeah, his specifically, and then I had another one come in on last Monday night. He said, I think I'd like to come in and do a review. I said, yeah, how much time do you want? He says, oh, I want, give me half an hour. Okay. Pulls out, I pull up his statement. He goes, has my money really doubled? I said, yeah, since you put it in. And he has never contributed anything else. He goes, all right, let me start contributing. Right? So it takes time to build a track record. That's why I don't like the recruiting a bunch of people and being in the business for 6 months. That's now Primerica's bad. No, that's not true. That person was not happy within Primerica as a business model, right? But when you see 5 years later your money has doubled and you're on track to retire financially independent, that's success, but that's not Primerica. That's Primerica taking a system and allowing everybody to implement it. Some people abuse it, right?
So if you question anything, talk to you, you have enough success stories to prove that.
Oh yeah,
what you've done.
I take, so when I teach a class, I teach a 5-week financial service or financial wellness class, and I do it for free for people. You don't have to become my clients. It doesn't matter to me. I just want people to know the stuff. I take statements, and I'll blot out the names and the amounts, and I just show the funds and the percentage of rates of return. This is what people actually get. Very often when I show clients, I'll use actual portfolios, or always I'll use actual portfolios, not always of clients, and I'll just block out people's names and show it. These are actual portfolios. This is the reality, right? Because a track record speaks, has a track record has higher value than a future projection.
Absolutely.
Right? That's why I like to use historical numbers to project inflation as an example. Historical rates of return on equity funds based on, okay, we can count on them doing that again. We have no guarantees, but we can count on them. Well, if we have no guarantees, will it go down in value? Yes. That's the month I want to be putting money in, right? Yeah.
So what are two final thoughts here, final pieces of advice that you would give to our listeners here?
Two things?
Yeah. 2 things. Or make it 3 if there's...
Make it, wow. In terms of what? Give me a specific.
Just in general, investing, like what's, if you can speak to hundreds or thousands of people here, what's some advice?
One thing I would say is understand the difference between risk and volatility, and then make sure that you are contributing something for the future. Those 2 things, like, and get a good policy in place. Like, it doesn't have to be our policy; it just has to be a good term policy, and it has to be for a right reason. And we can talk about that why term. I can talk about that all day long. Make sure you have good policy in place for the duration that you need it. If I died before I have savings, my wife's going to need money. The kids are going to need money to grow up. Like, life insurance has its place. I like the idea of it. I don't like talking about it because people die when I talk about it. But anyway, so those 2 things I would say is understand the difference between risk and volatility, and put some money into equity markets for the future. Like, even if you have 2 other businesses on the side and you're in real estate and you're doing all of these other things, that's fantastic. Make sure you have a nest egg. The nest egg is, like, there's a couple of verses in the Bible I think about, and I won't quote them or anything, but I have learned to be content in much, and I've learned to be content in little. I know that being broke is okay if you have peace with Christ. Being wealthy is also okay if you have the same peace. But being broke is harder than being wealthy because there's a weight there, because you are a slave, because you owe people money. If you can get out of the slavery money aspect, if you could just not be a slave, you have the motivation to become ambitious. I think that's how I want to word that. You have the motivation to become ambitious. So the advice is this: get out of slavery so that you can become motivated to become ambitious, right? That's how I think about it. Should probably write that down so I remember it.
We'll have it on the recording here.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so that's how I would say those are the final two things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does.
Awesome.
Well, thanks a lot for sharing, and
For sure,
thanks for coming by.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I do like southwestern Ontario and Kitchener area. It is.
Well, we'll
it's
maybe have to
beautiful.
put an event together here sometime and get some of our listeners
We
to
should
come out.
Yeah, we should do that. You betcha. Awesome.
Awesome. All right, thanks a lot.
Yep.